Hello, loves. Welcome to this full moon Instagram Live Sensual Sovereignty Birth the Box with the incredible Oceana Sawyer, a fellow sibling on the path of somatic abolitionism. Um, this is the space that we met. I'm going to give a little introduction for Oceana, and then I will look for her. Hopefully, we won't have trouble getting her on. So, Oceana Sawyer is an end of life doula focused on the liminal space of active dying and grief. She's currently researching and holding space in the realm of embodied grieving in a context of somatic abolitionism. Drawing upon her meditation practices, experience as a sensuality educator, earth-based spirituality, and an intensive study in the expressive arts and integral counseling psychology. Here she is. I'll get her on soon. She brings a grounded, compassionate presence to her work with individuals and groups. You can follow her on her website and participate in her online grief community on Patreon. So you can find these through her Instagram, which we'll share. Her first book, Life, Death, Grief, and the Possibility of Pleasure, I just love it, I love the title, is available at Kizzy's Books and More and Amazon. So please check that out. That book was just released. Let me get Oceana on. Yay. It worked.
That was like, oh my God, just like the best introduction ever. It was like dripping with so much sauce.
Yes, yes,
Woo, girl,
yes. Some people are joining us.
you
Yay.
brought it. I'm so and I'm
Oh.
not easy to impress in that realm. So yeah, okay then, come on with your bad self.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be here with you. I'm so grateful that we met through the space that we did and that we've
Mm.
gotten to connect more deeply recently, which has led to this conversation. I feel so much siblinghood.
Oh, oh.
You may have, maybe you know some people joining us. Welcome, welcome.
All right, let me just.
Can you see?
Yeah, just kind of scrolling through really fast. Yeah, how
Oh,
fun. I know I don't know any of these people, but yay, I'm so glad you guys
oh
are here.
yeah, because I wasn't. Wow, well, great, yay.
Believe me, when somebody pops on that I know, I'm going to say, oh.
Please do, please do. And anyone who's joining, please feel free to chime in, comment as we go. I want to just mention this topic that we talked about of this whole Instagram live series really came from this idea that had been bubbling in me of sensual sovereignty. And then I, at some point, kind of defined it for myself, really, and to put it out there as embodied love, liberation, and the license to expand the expression of our true essence. And when we
Mm.
spoke,
Oh,
you
can we just like pause there? Because that is a whole gem right there. And can you just like say it one more time? Because I'm like, wow.
I
Yeah.
love it. Yes, yes. Let me say it. Let me not. I was rushing past it to get to you, but let me say it again.
I'm right here. So we need to get to me. I'm here. Just say that again, though. That was good. I want to wallow in that, really.
Okay, okay. So, sensual sovereignty embodied love, liberation, and the license to expand the expression of our true essence.
Mm, yes. Yes. I love that definition. Like, like the love and the liberation, how you like got those two things together, which is like so important, so explosive in our, our Black and brown bodies, right? This like, how are you gonna like pursue your liberation with so much love for yourself, that you can use that to expand, your who you are, the essence of who you are, have all that like juicy life essence, force, talent, gift you came to give come, because you are pursuing your sovereignty in the form of love and liberation. Oh, oh, oh. I mean, this is the stuff that just like tickles the mind. It just like rolls around in your head and it kind of trickles down the back of your throat into your chest and your belly and down into your crotch and out your legs, down your thighs and your toes into the earth. And you are just like connected,
Oh God. Oh
connected.
God.
Oh, God, I just want to say the ambiance that you bring to a live call. I've never experienced anything like this. I feel just because you set the stage with, body sovereignty by your definition, I feel like this permission to like, just show all the way up. Like, yeah, here it is. Yeah.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
That's some
I
divinity right there.
oh, I just have to point out that because it started with just one live and then it kind of moves. So I'm losing. I think I've done like 18 of these now, and not once has there ever been any kind of reaction that you just brought into it. So I'm so appreciating it. I'm so appreciating what you're bringing. I'm so appreciating it.
Well, we have to, at this point, like, this thing we just did, we have to give, flowers to our teacher, right?
Yes, please.
Res Dominicum, who taught us in the somatic abolitionist training program,
Yes.
gave us this piece around, you know what? Why don't y'all just like pause for a second? Just slow it down. And, just have this resource,
Yes.
right? I mean, honestly, if this Instagram live is just this, what we just hear, I'd be like, let me put this on repeat because I saw two sisters show up and just, oh, and you know who just showed up here, by the way. Hi,
Oh,
Tony. We see
Tony.
you. See you. A little triangle member there. Okay, cool. So yeah, I think, in the journey that is body sovereignty, because I just before I came on here, I was recording chapter 4 in my reader's guide, for
Ooh.
my book. The reader's guide just came out, which you can get if you're in my Patreon community. It's all there.
Yeah.
But now I'm recording this guided, journey through the reader's guide. So this is me going through every chapter, and I just finished chapter 4. And one of the questions I ask and answer, because it's just me, is how do you know when you've arrived at pleasure? How do you know when you have arrived at body sovereignty, right?
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
you don't. Or let's just
Right?
say if you do, then what you arrive at is this recognition that it's a journey.
Yeah.
It's like somatic abolitionism. How do you know when you've arrived at liberation?
Right.
Um, that I'm not willing to say you don't, because I do believe you can arrive at liberation, but I feel like it's a journey. Like there are stages, there are milestones along the way of this path of liberation, and how we are doing this path, right? This path of liberation and pleasure and, body sovereignty, pleasure as a resource along the way to get to this, because, this is the legacy that we've inherited, right, from our mentors. Alice Walker, who's still alive, Lucille Clifton, Audre Lorde, have to this way of using the erotic, the sensual as fuel to be on the path of liberation. That's the juice.
Yes.
Resma says it's going to take 7 generations for us to metabolize all this grief and all this racialized trauma. Right. Okay, that can sound daunting on the one hand, but on the other hand, there's the path. You're still on the path, so why not make it a party? It's going to be what it is, right? It's going to be all the things. It's going to be hard. I mean, I just met with my triad yesterday, and yeah, it's gonna be hard remembering those pieces from your past where you have this, bound up pieces of trauma around, racial pieces around relating with other Black women, which it is for me right now. Yes. And to do that in the company of a community of other people. This is just kind of a side note. Maybe I'll come back to it, but I talk about this a lot in my book. That, cultivating pleasure for yourself is one thing, but to do it in a group with other people, to do it with even one other person, much less a group, that's like octane, to use a petroleum gas, a metaphor. It's octane. It's like adding just more fuel to the stuff that, powers your life when you add in more people. Right. Because, you have opportunities of co-regulation, and there's another word I'm looking for here, neural resonance, that all of that is just stuff that, has the process of your journey be even more, makes it more valid, gives it the roots to really seep into your body. Sort of even if you're just on Zoom. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, just you and me right here on Instagram Live. I am like completely like turned on, and I feel like I'm just like channeling, because that's what's available when you're in a state of pleasure. Yes. If you have access to the ancestors, you have access to spirit, you have access to other realms, other ways of knowing. That's the stuff that you want. That's the more beyond, patriarchal white supremacy that we wanting to access in our path of liberation. These other ways of knowing and being, and pleasure, sensuality, being embodied, being connected to the earth, being connected to your lineage in whatever that means, and, genetic, earth, intellectual, all of that, that level of, I don't know, just juicy complexity and weaving and braiding that makes a life richer. I have gone on this long tangent for, I don't even know where I was in this conversation. I'm just kind of enjoying it. The juicy
I love it. I'm enjoying it completely. I'm totally with you.
Oh, and Maze is here. Hi, Maze.
So Maddie's here. Tony, yeah. Thank you all for joining. It was really resonating with all of it, honestly, all of it. But the journey and I use journey all the time, and I talk about pleasure path or journey, or like recently it's come to me in interesting ways. Like I ran into a male coach a couple of weeks ago, just in this town, and we haven't seen each other in a long, long time. So I'm talking about this offering, and um, oh, Jess is here too. Yay. Um, he's like, in a well-meaning way, just like, well, what are your outcomes? What is the outcome of the program? And like, I'm saying it this way. He was just asking, honestly, he was just asking. And I was like, oh, well, and I was fumbling and I was like floundering. And then I felt like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, I don't know exactly what the outcomes are. And then I got home, and then I like got a chance to connect with another person on this journey with me, a coach in embodied culture, and she just reflected back. She goes, "This isn't about outcomes." It's like, I was like, "Oh yeah, you're right." What? I just got pulled into the coaching world and like, well, what is it about? And what are the steps? And and it's like, no, that's not what this is. Like, it's not.
Oh,
It's
dominant culture, man. So limiting. So limiting. I mean, even if you came up with the steps and the outcomes, that is so static. It can only be as good as that is in that moment of time. And it might even be brilliant. I'm sure if
Yeah.
you came up with them, it'd be brilliant. But that's just like that moment in time. And then there's so much more. Why limit yourself?
I know. I know. I do think I needed to invite that experience in to actually move beyond it, like, and then talk about, this isn't about outcomes. This is about state. And like you're saying, fuel, and like you're saying, resource. This is about so much else. And this is about, I don't know where it's going to take you. You see where it's going to take you in your own life.
Exactly. Right on. I mean, it's like this invitation to be curious
Mm-hmm.
about your life rather than have somebody like tell you the 5 steps and spoon feed you, where you're supposed to go. Here's the roadmap. Why not be brave and courageous and, wander around, as Bayo Okomalafe says, wander and see if you can fall into some cracks. And in the cracks, is some stuff you've never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's gonna be bits of trash and garbage and dead stuff and ugh. But there's also in all that it's going to be maybe something you can use, something surprising that's going to like be, wow, I never thought about that before. That's right, Maze. Take taking risk is like that to me. That is like the. I know I've used this word so much in this Instagram live, maybe because I'm just hanging out here with you. But it's the juice, It's the secret sauce of life. Taking risks, and you want to be. You don't want to be. Well, you can be. I was gonna say you don't want to be willy nilly about it, but maybe you do. But the point is to try things out. I say this a lot in my work, in talking to people about having a grief journey that includes pleasure, and these are things that just don't even go together, really. But if you're going to be on that path, you're going to necessarily wander into new territory, and why not experiment?
Mm-hmm.
Not try something you've never tried before. Why not, in the middle of a complete sob fest over the loss of your loved one, maybe you turn on a playlist that you have already put together, and just start playing that playlist that's specifically made by you for your grief journey. So,
Yes.
that's just something you're trying now to see how it works, how it supports. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's a distraction. Maybe it just feels too weird. But it's okay. You tried it, and maybe you'll try something else from there.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, I think, always to be looking for ways to um, have even more, to feel even more. So, and it starts with the acknowledgement of how you feel right now in your body. This is like, again, this is stuff that, we've learned in working with Resma, is just to be in tune
Mm-hmm.
with the body. And this is, I think, a way of coming into a kind of a body sovereignty, is just
Mm-hmm.
paying attention. How do these legs feel today? How does this creaky knee feel today? What does this creaky knee need right now? Okay, it needs a stretch. So I'm giving this creaky knee a stretch. And that feels good. Actually, that feels really good. So hey,
Yeah.
that stretch brought more energy to this conversation, right? Okay, now that I stretched this knee out, I can feel even greater connection to my body. And I
Mm-hmm.
just feel like, we were talking about this earlier, for us to have more, to claim our bodies,
Mm-hmm.
especially at this moment in time in history, is so important. It's sort of like what our ancestors, birthed us for, is we be the ones to claim sovereignty over our bodies, because many of us have only recently been able to claim sovereignty over our bodies. Like, if you're of African descent in the United States, it's only been less than 200 years that we've been able to claim sovereignty. If you are a black or brown skinned body in other countries, you may not still have access to sovereignty over your body, depending on where you are in the world. But to whatever extent you can claim that, that's like, to me, that's an act of revolution right there in the realm of Audre Lorde, right? Just to
Yeah.
claim that, to own that, that's a revolutionary act. You don't
Yes.
have to like be all out there, waving your body around like, oh, look me, I'm all that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm actually just literally talking about, why don't you embrace yourself? Just embrace yourself. Love on yourself. Feel yourself. Hold you and love you and oil you and stroke you, and just experiment. See what actually feels good to you. By the way, this is a good way to train a partner in a sensual situation. You have to know before you get to the bedroom what actually feels good to you. And how are you going to know that if you haven't already done that exploration yourself? Okay.
Yes.
Side note. But it also applies in my realm of, life, death, grief.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to tell people how to support you, for instance, in a grief journey, if you don't know, if you haven't already done that experimentation? So like
Mm-hmm.
when my mother died in November 2019, I was able to say to people, by the way, that's another pro tip in grief. People, it's a kind of a waste of time, honestly, to get mad at your friends and family because they're not supporting you because you're grieving. It's easy to make up a story like, oh my God, they don't care, they're completely ignoring that I had this big loss, and they're so callous and cold, and it's so easy to go there. And you'll get
Yes.
a lot of support for that point of view, because that's the kind of society we live in. We like, trashing people and tearing people apart. We're very, very owned at that.
Mm-hmm.
But I would submit to you that what is actually the case in our death phobic society, where we get no training on how to die well or grieve, no training, nothing, because we have been um, extracted from our traditional ways where that was taught, I was just talking to somebody, or somebody brought it up in the Death Cafe on Tuesday. Um, Someone from another country was talking about how in the cafe context, she could actually remember that, you know what, in the village where my people grew up, we had death ways. You know, we had a way of when people were about to die, taking them into the forest. Someone would go with them and make it comfortable for them and sit with them until they died. And when they died, there would be prayers and anointments, and they would be covered or left there to decompose back into the earth. This is recent. Like as of 1920, they were doing that. Okay. So only 100 years ago, and then it got outlawed, by the missionaries.
Oh.
Okay, yeah, white supremacy. So, but this way of being with death, we don't have that. That's been stripped from us. So you could be kind to your friends and your family. This is where I'm going with this, by the way. Yeah. And you could tell them actually what they could do to support you. Just tell them.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait for them to ask. You could say, so and so, it would be really, I could really use a bouquet of flowers right now. That would really make me feel supported and kind of add some beauty to this really hard journey. I guarantee you, people would love an assignment. Oh, good. Something I can win with. She's given me a mission. Something specific I can actually do. Somebody showed up at my doorstep with, I loved it, a 5-gallon bucket from Home Depot, right? 5-gallon bucket of flowers, just stuffed of half water and just flowers they cut from their garden, just all tossed in there. It was a big old heap of the most gorgeous flowers from her garden. She spent no money, got in no car, went to her garden that she's cultivated with love and attention and time, and cut the most beautiful flowers, put them in a bucket of water, and left them on my doorstep. Now you could say, what? Who is this person who just left a bucket of flowers on my doorstep? That's like, but here's the thing. Not only did I know that was the most thoughtful, precious thing that she could do with her no money self, but it also gave me now the added joy of creating my own bouquets. I got 3 bouquets out of that bucket, okay? And that act, that was a somatic therapeutic session right there. Yeah. Picking up the flowers, smelling them, putting them in a vase. That was an embodied practice. It was healing. It was balm to my nervous system. It hit on at least 3 senses. A sense of sight, the beauty of the flowers, a sense of smell, the smell of the flowers, a sense of touch, just picking them up and moving them around with my body. This is what I talk about. This is the sensuality I'm talking about in my book, by the way. It's not sexual, and I'm not opposed to sensuality, as you well know. Right. But this book is G-rated. It's really about how can you use all of your senses. Yes. And this is to bring to a grief or death journey. And this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about body sovereignty, right? Is how can we bring all of our senses to our embodied way, of being, physical being, use our physicality through our senses to actually augment this journey that we're on of grief and liberation, which I believe really go hand in hand. Grief and liberation, and this sort of ownership. This is why I encourage people to embrace a grief journey or a death journey, is that level of ownership you get for your body, your life. There's nothing else. There's no other way to get that particular amount of ownership and sovereignty, and except to embrace that those moments in life that everyone is going to have, right? No one's getting out of this alive. You are going to experience death in some way
Yeah.
before you get to your death. That's just life.
Right.
And of course, because we have the dominant culture that we have, of course there's built into it all these ways for us to non-confront the grittiness of death. Just like in our food systems. I'm learning about right now how modernity, which is pretty much analogous to white supremacy, colonialism, okay? Modernity, aka, white supremacist colonialism, is all about separation.
Yeah.
It's all about creating separability. Okay, let's distance you from death. We're going to have that happen in a hospital around some, authorized, people who they're the only ones deemed to, deal with the body as it's dying. And then once the death has occurred, then we have some other authorized people come and take the body away and, do stuff to it behind closed doors, a lot of it very toxic, and then give it back to you in this packaged form. What does this sound like? This kind of sounds like our food system.
I was just
okay.
Thinking, yes.
Whoa! It sounds just like our food system. That chicken that you're buying in Safeway, you don't get to see how that chicken has been born. Factory meat system. Okay, that's all I gotta say here, because I know all y'all probably already know exactly. You have the images. I don't even have to bring that up, y'all. That was an elicitation. Do what you need to do for self-care when you think about the food system.
I know.
The horror, the trauma that we are inflicting on living beings in the food system alone.
Mm-hmm.
And we just take that and apply it to ourselves. It's almost like, colonizer don't have any other way of being, hardly. I'm just replicating this, horrific way of living and dying to animals, to ecosystems, to people,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we all know that's happening. But we also have agency.
Mm-hmm.
So we can make choices.
Yes.
And every choice you make in the other direction, I think, is a revolutionary act. And it's evolutionary. These are the things that we need to be doing right now to grow ourselves up,
Mm-hmm.
to evolve ourselves to be in this moment of time, in this particular moment, because let's call it, right? We are in a die-off.
Mm.
In the realm of deep time, we are in, what do they call this? Like I don't even want to say, because I'm going to get it wrong, but we're in a mass die-off. We're in an extinction period.
Right.
That we ourselves have initiated. And maybe we were evolved to initiate this mass die-off, because it's been happening. It's cyclical, in the long history of the earth. So that's just what's going to happen. But how are we going to make it in this moment of time?
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to make it through? How are we going to pass on? Oh, here we go. The embers.
Yes.
How are we going to remember enough of the really essential stuff that you pointed out, the essence of who we are? How are we going to remember that, so we have embers that we can pass on to the next generation, the next epoch, really, which I have to say, I agree with Bio Komalafe. It's going to be Afrocene. The Afrocene is coming. It's coming. It's coming. Be prepared.
Yes.
Live and dance in the cracks. Anyway, so you know me, I could just be going on. Do you have something you want to jump in with here?
I love it. I love it. I'm just basking in it. So there was a few things, but there was something from a bit back when you were talking about how it's up to us to know, to like connect and know, like when it comes to pleasure or when it comes to what we need in grief, like we need to know that's our responsibility to know what we need. Like it's such a basic thing, but I think that's something I found anyway, that we often don't know, and we expect other people to know. How could they know if we don't connect to that ourselves, or have some understanding, or have some practice that we've just, even like you said with the flat, like the sense of something where we're like connecting to our own, what do I need in this moment? What do I need for pleasure? Or what do I need if I'm in grief? What do I need to feel soothed, to feel held, and can I just express that and get that met? Because people want to meet our needs, people that love us.
Yeah, that's really true. I'm just sort of wallowing in this question now. Uh,
It
you
was
know,
a while back,
no, no,
but
but
it
you
held.
presenced it, and
Yeah.
and it's alive right now in the present. I don't
Mhm.
even have to go back there because I couldn't if I wanted to. But right here, this moment, when you ask that or you speak that into the space, I just feel like, you know, part of the whole liberation and sovereignty
Mhm.
game, if
Mhm.
you will. I used that term last year. I'm really embarrassed. And I'll just be transparent about it because now it's up. But, last year before I had really, or I was just beginning to educate myself on gender expansiveness.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and I was still at the level of trying to figure out what pronouns I'm supposed to be using and bumbling through that, right?
Yeah.
I said to a couple of friends, um, well, I'm thank you for saying that I'm kind of new to this pronoun game.
Yeah.
And they took such offense to my use of the word game. And in
Oh,
fact, the very next thing that was said was, it's not a game. And they were right. They were definitely right. Um, so let me just say, I'm using game um, in the in the sense here. By the way, if that happens to you, like you stumble like that,
yeah.
there's no reason you don't have to get lost in shame. Nobody's trying to shame you. You can say, okay, thank you,
Mhm.
and you're right, and move on. But
Yeah.
it was also
Yeah.
a doorway for me, honestly, to continue my journey of learning more about
Yeah.
gender expansiveness. I
Yeah.
felt the love in the correction there, and it really
Mhm.
fueled my curiosity about that, to the extent that actually right now in my own life, I don't have my gender identity so fixed anymore. And I think that's actually one of the gifts. I know I'm getting on a total side tangent, but it might be connected. I'm sure it is.
It all.
But I think that's one of the gifts that the LGBTQ plus trans community has brought us, this
Yeah.
gender expansiveness.
Yes. Yes.
They have claimed that space for themselves. And on the one hand, you want to go, oh, hey, cool, right on, I'm with you, I got your back on this. But look at the way I'm even saying it. They claim that space for themselves as if it's not me. And that's the thing I've come to recently, is it is me. I am gender expansive also. I just have bought into the dominant paradigm that because I have, a vagina and breasts, that I must be female, so I will be female. But that's not true.
Mhm.
I just have the body parts I have, and I am
Mhm.
this person.
Yeah.
I can be all these things in any way I want to be these things. That's mine to claim too. It's yours to claim too. This capacity to be exactly who you are in any given moment. In fact, that does, I see, it connects beautifully to body sovereignty.
Yes, it does.
I think that's one of the aspects that we are talking about here when we talk about love and liberation, to get to the essence of who you are. You know, you have to, I think in the journey towards that, you have to be willing to let go of who you think you already are. You know, sometimes I think people think they're going on these journeys back to themselves and they already think they know who this is, you know, some kind of magical unicorn being, you know. I know it. I remember it from when I was 2. Well, hello, you know, you were expansive as you were as a glorious 2-year-old. I'm not even want to dismiss that. But you have lived, and now you are so much more than even that. So sure, get back to that magical self that you were when you were 2, but then blow that out, expand that forward with everything you've learned along the way, and even blow that up, because even whatever you're conceiving of who you can be right now is only still a fraction of who you could be if you are willing to be fluid, you know, to just go with what is. Because I know, for me, more and more, I'm just finding myself in the study of modernity, right? I've been reading Hospicing Modernity by Vanessa Mercado de Oliveira, who's now called Vanessa Andriotti. And that book, I highly recommend, by the way. It's, if you want to do a deep dive into decolonialization, that is a book. I read it in the beginning of the year. It's still affecting me.
Tell me the title again.
It's called Hospicing Modernity.
Okay, I have to really look at that.
Which, of course, is how I stumbled upon it last year. Was, you know, anything that says hospicing, I must get this, you know, and I'll read about. I fully expected a book to be about modern hospicing techniques or something.
That's not it.
That's not. It's actually about modernity, aka white supremacist colonization, imperialism, and how it has, you know, taken over every aspect of your life and the world, and created these deep violence. Through violence, created these deep divisions that are only going to get worse. And so what there is, but it's also reached an end. You know, it's not sustainable this way we have been consuming things. It's just, and so you can already tell it's breaking down. You know, you can see the climate breaking down, the economy breaking down, social structures, you know, breaking down. You can already see that the pandemic just sort of like heightened, you know, what those were, or are. So, I forgot where I was going to go with this. Well, I guess this is, I know where I was going to go. So if you're able to break free of the pre-packaged sense of self that modernity has given you, then you could see some other ways of being, you know. And to me, that is the reclamation of self, or not even self. And when actually I should say self. Even when I say self, though, I'm not talking about you, the individual. Right. I'm talking about the self that's embedded, you know, in the earth, in community, in lineages, in the future, you know, that multi-dimensional, multiverse, you know, self. Yeah. I'm like wandering around the universe here. Did I answer your question? What was your question? I don't know.
I mean, we were talking about, I think, you know, like this desire, getting in touch with our desires, but that is also part of like desires for pleasure, desires for grief, like what we need, what we're wanting. But what you're sharing is all about that. Like, well, what is, you know, as we do that that journey in itself goes deep and deep and deep, because what we initially might desire is something that is of the conditioned self, right? But when we can like shed and expand and allow, and then we get into this deeper self, this rooted self, and this larger sense of self, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. I think we're just sort of, I don't know, is it the point of it all? I don't know. Is it? I don't know. I feel like the work we were doing with Resma and the
Mm-hmm.
somatic abolitionist,
Yeah.
somatic abolitionism, I think the work you're doing around creating pleasure sanctuaries for bodies of culture, the work I'm doing in pleasure activism in the end of life space. Um, and I think all of these are just offers to come back home, right? Home, home to the body, home, and it's not just the body, but the heart
Yes.
and the mind and the, you know, home before it was prepackaged. Before it was something you could buy in a supermarket, off the
Right.
shelf. Your true home.
Yes, yes.
And honestly, that is one of the things I see when people are getting to the end of their life.
Mm.
Is you can kind of, they've lost the capacity to speak, but it doesn't matter, because what opens up is a kind of telepathy. If you're paying attention, if you're willing to expand your mind, you can start, you can be in communication with the person who's dying, and you can kind of follow along to a certain degree at a distance, but you can just kind of follow along. And my experience in that space, I call it a portal that opens up when someone goes into active dying. And consistently what I've seen is people are sort of confronting all these constructs that
Mm.
are so dear in their life that suddenly don't seem to matter at all.
Right.
And that non-mattering that sort of kind of explodes in the space when someone is in active dying, that portal space. You're kind of initially still looking around for, oh, you're going to grab onto something that matters, something that means something. And then you realize it's kind of not even the point. The point is not to grab on to anything familiar or known or something you can anchor yourself in. The point is to let yourself go into this like kind of like dismantling, implosion, just like the stars do. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
now we've gone into the earth. Now we're going to go up into the stars.
Mm.
We are stardust.
Mm.
Make no mistake. You didn't just come into existence in your, bipedal, body. You
Mm-hmm.
have that didn't just like pop out, you know, um, heaven.
Mm-hmm.
This structure that you are has been evolved over millions and millions and millions of years. You right here are the result of billions of experiments, billions of experiments by the building blocks of life back at the beginning of whatever you want to call time. And that's even kind of like, really? Okay. But whatever you want to, the building blocks of life. You know, I follow Brian Swim, uh, quantum physicist, and he talks about the cosmos in the most delicious ways. I highly recommend it. Um, he says one aspect of cosmology is allurement. things are attracted to come together. They get attracted to each other for whatever reasons they do, but they can become attracted to each other. And a kind of symbiosis forms, a learning forms. This is where the experimentation started happening. Like, how do we do this dance? This is how stars come into being. You know, chemicals come together or they don't. And the ones that come together and are stable, they form a stable, and then they bring in other pieces that become like stable. But in the process, they're trying a lot of other pieces of chemical combinations that don't work. They're not stable, so they blow apart. Imagine you right here in your physical, however, your physicality, however stable that is, you are the result of billions of experiments that didn't work. You are the one that worked. And then this other experiment that actually worked to make that stable. And this other experiment, and now that works. So this evolution that you are, you know, there's so many different ways you can look at it. You can look at it on the physical level, like you've been evolved to this moment in time. You have been evolved by the cosmos to be in this moment in time with your capacity for awareness, to reflect on yourself. We are one of the few experiments that the cosmos has evolved that actually has the capacity for self-reflection. So what are you going to do with that? You know, the possibilities are endless. We could go back to the things we were saying earlier, right? You could just start experimenting. You yourself are an experiment, so start experimenting. You know, play, literally play. You know, do the stuff. And the point is to find the stuff you're attracted to, because that's how the cosmos created you. Allurement. The stuff, the very stuff that you're attracted to is the stuff that that is meant for you. So go with that and see what wants to emerge. Again, this is like another way of speaking about pleasure. You know, if you're moving towards the stuff that actually feels good, not the stuff off the shelf that you were told should feel good, you know, this pornography, you know, that bag of potato chips, you know, this luxury hotel, you know. If you actually move towards, follow your body, the sovereignty of your body, follow it towards what feels good, the people who feel good, the places that actually feel good to you from your essence. That is where the juice is. That is you actually fulfilling your destiny. Honestly, literally you fulfilling your destiny, because that is what life is. Life is meant to breed, create, generate more life. That is at the base all we're here to do. Generate more life.
Oh my God, Oceana, that was amazing.
I think we're done here. On that note, I actually do have another thing, so
Yes, yes, yes. Thank
thank
you so
you.
much. Thank you so much. And I just want to say that as you were talking, what came up was what we talked about before this, just recently before this call, of if we are conscious and intentional about having a good death, we will have a good life. Like, we will create a good life.
Exactly.
I love it. Thank you so much. If there's anything you want to share before you go, of like, I know you've mentioned, but just to who's here right now, of your book or where to find your work or anything else, please do.
Oh yes. So, you know, you can see right here on Instagram, you have my handle, you know, Oceana End of Life Doula. And on my profile is how you can buy my book. I'm sending everyone, by the way, I know I should be playing the Amazon game. I'm gonna call that a game.
Yeah.
Because that's I should be playing that game if I, you know, were in the book selling business, but I'm not. So I'm sending people to Kizzy's Books and More. And they have an online shop. I honestly, I stumbled across my book on their on their site. I was gonna I went on their site to ask them, oh, could you, put my book on your site? And then it was already there. I was like, oh my God.
Look at that
Fangirl moment.
allurement and the attraction. What happened?
Totally, totally. Oh my God. I've hardly been so tickled in this whole book journey as that moment when I found my book on Kizzy Books and More. Black owned bookstore. Please get it there. You can join my Patreon, where pretty much I'm not doing a lot of workshops anymore. I'm very active in the Rooted Global Village. And you can join that community. And I'm doing grief work and diasporic hush harbor work for Black bodies in that space.
Okay.
All the kind of grief and liberation work I'm doing in that space right now. So that's, you want to go over, you can find that on Instagram at Tending the Roots.
Yes.
You can look that up, and that's something to follow. Resma is involved in that group, as well as Biology. Just some yummy people are involved in that work, and I'm happy to be there. But yeah, those are the places you can find me. My Instagram, my Patreon, and the Rooted Global Village.
Thank you so much, Oceana. I appreciate this all so much.
Oh, okay. I just saw somebody join. Okay, first I wanted to shout out to some people.
Okay.
Ash, I see you. And Buku, I see you. Thank you. Oh, you have a question. Can I give you a reading? Oh, yes. Please contact me in my DMs. Yes, please. And because I follow them too, actually. Yeah, Ash has a chapter in my actually a section in my book. You should really read it. In fact, Ash, you're gonna love this. I was just recording chapter 3 of the Reader's Guide this morning for the Patreon, and I told everybody you have to read this part at the end of chapter 3 where Ash tells how to build a grief container, a ritual grief container that's filled with all of the things that bring sacredness to the process. So previews and that come. And I also see my friend Pearl on here. You guys should follow Pearl. I'm not going to say this right. Madriga? Anyhow, they're on here right now. They have beautiful feed, and they are looking at death from an aesthetic perspective that I just love. It's just gorgeous. And that's another artist in the death care field to follow. Just love that work as well. Okay, so now I'm done talking. And you creating sanctuary for bodies of culture to find themselves sensually coming back to their life force energy embodied. That work.
When you said pleasure sanctuary, when you were talking, I was like I hadn't actually ever put it in those words, but yeah, that resonated. Thank you.
Keep it. It's yours.
Thank you so much. Oh, until next time. Thank you so much. This was just filled with so much juice, as you say.
The juice is. Right. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Love you.